That is something that really gives me hope about climate action, is that like once someone does it somewhere, that means you can do it here. In this world that we live in right now, this like very individualized, very capitalistic society, connection is very radical and vulnerability is very radical.
Bonjour, welcome to White Walls. My name is Mathieu Penaud. I am a product manager and learning experience designer, passionate about the role of design and technology in education and learning. In this podcast, I interview inspiring educators, researchers, designers, and innovators to discuss their journey and insights as they imagine and build the future of learning. If you enjoy the show, please share your favorite episode with fellow parents and educators, and make sure you don't miss our next guest by following White Walls on your favorite podcast platform, or even better, by subscribing to White Walls' free newsletter on Substack. Thank you for being part of the conversation, and now, your episode. Welcome everyone! Today on White Walls, I'm very happy to welcome Suzie Hicks, an award-winning filmmaker, author, and television host working at the intersection of entertainment, education, environmental justice, and community activism. Suzie earned their master's degree in climate and society as part of the inaugural class at Columbia University's Climate School. Through their work, they aim to demystify climate change and empower a new generation to build a more sustainable world. Their latest project is a fantastic 7-episode YouTube series, Suzie Hicks, The Climate Chick and Sprout, featuring Suzie and their charming puppet sidekick Sprout, as they explore the human impact on Earth's climate and the solutions and actions within our reach. Today, we'll talk about Suzie's personal journey into environmental justice and the vital role of children's media in making climate science accessible, engaging, and hopeful. Suzie, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to White Walls.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Very excited about our conversation. And as usual, we'll start with some rapid fire questions.
Go for it.
First question is, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in New Jersey.
And where do you live now?
And I live in Los Angeles, California normally, but right now I'm up in Marin County for a Shakespeare contract for the summer.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Who was your favorite teacher?
Oh, my favorite teacher was it was a mix between my science teachers and my English teachers. So I don't have a favorite, but I have like a group of favorites. So it was like my 8th grade science teacher, my honors English teacher, my AP English teacher, my AP environmental science teacher. It was, literally like and my theater teachers. God, yeah. So it was like my science teachers and my theater teachers were my favorite teachers.
Love it. And what's the common point? Is there a thread there?
Me. The common point is that I am now a science, English, and a theater teacher.
All right. Cool. What is one thing that all kids should learn at school?
All kids should learn the carbon cycle at school. Everyone, and in a way earlier and in a way that isn't so irrelevant to them. Because once you understand the way that carbon moves through our world, you understand that we're in a carbon imbalance and that what we need to do is stop putting so much carbon in the atmosphere and get the carbon back on the ground where it belongs.
Love it. And one thing that all adults should learn at work?
All adults should know how intersectional climate change is, that it's not just about the environment. We live here. Everything that we do to the environment, we do to ourselves. Everything we put into the environment, we put into ourselves. So I think connecting ourselves to everything that's happening and connecting ourselves to our neighbors is really important.
Yeah. What is your favorite show about the environment?
Oh, great question. My favorite show about the environment is Molly of Denali. And my favorite movie about the environment is either Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind by Hayao Miyazaki or The Wild Robot, which just came out this year.
Yeah, that was really good. Great. And we'll talk about it, but you have a very nice sidekick puppet in your latest show, Sprout.
I do.
What is your favorite puppet?
My favorite puppet.
Other than Sprout, of course.
Question.
Sprout is your favorite, I'm sure.
Sprout's number one. She listened to this and heard she wasn't number one. She quit. Let's see. I think my favorite puppet is Daniel Tiger from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, because Daniel Tiger is the puppet that Sprout is modeled after, because Daniel Tiger represents Mr. Rogers' inner child.
Wow, very nice. What is the latest thing that you did for work?
The latest thing that I did for work. Well, the thing about my work is that I do a lot of different things for work. I kind of sit at the intersection of climate advocacy, entertainment, and education. And so I'm doing all three of those things all the time. The latest thing I did for work is that I had a call this morning with an international organization that's trying to get a green jobs training module out to 14 to 20-year-olds around the world. And so they had a call with me to ask how they could better reach those 14 to 20-year-olds and if I could help them with their communication strategy.
Ooh, very cool. And the latest thing you did to relax?
Oh, I went to bed at like 8 p.m. last night. And I woke up at 7. So it was great. I had a beautiful night's sleep last night.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for answering these questions. Now we'll get into the main part of our conversation. And the first question I like to ask is, how do you feel when you reflect on your journey so far, from where you started and to where you are now?
I feel really proud of myself for sitting in the fear and the uncertainty of it all. Because when I was, going to college and graduating college, like environmental communication wasn't really a career path. It was either that you were a full stop environmental scientist or you were full stop, communicator. And I just like felt so pulled to the intersection of that. But it was a really lonely journey. And it was filled with imposter syndrome. And it was filled with, what am I doing? Like, this doesn't make sense. Everybody thinks I'm an idiot. And so I just like every single day in the beginning of my career was battling like demons as I was, trying to battle the fossil fuel industry. And I just, at this point in my career where I'm like a little bit more established, like I have a professional network, I have made a name for myself. I'm like, dang, Suzie, like 22-year-old Suzie, good for you for like believing that this was real, because it is real. And now I'm reaping the benefits of that.
And when you were like in this struggle, where did you turn to for support, or who helped you along the way?
Yeah. Oh God, I would be nowhere without my friends. My friends believe in me more than I believe in myself, which is really helpful. And I also have a quote that lives on my wall right next to where I work that says, "You have to believe in yourself. That's the secret." And it's from Charlie Chaplin from like 100 years ago. Because in terms of the entertainment industry, you have to just live on faith and audacity in order to make anything. Like, that was a really big lesson for me of like, what if no one thinks I'm talented? And what if no one thinks I'm good? And it's like, no, shut up. If it doesn't even matter if you are like the most talented person in the room. You have to have the audacity to keep going, and you have to have the audacity to tell people what you're doing and why they should give you money. So there's the entertainment aspect of that. And then in terms of climate, you have to believe in a better future, even though you're not living in one right now. So that kind of radical imagination is a necessary part of activism. Because if you look at what's going on right now, it's so easy to bury your face in your hands and say, there's nothing to be done. The world is over. We live in fascism now. I might as well like lay down and watch Netflix for 8 hours. And so it's kind of like a muscle to exercise faith and exercise audacity and exercise belief in a better world. And so working in these two industries and also working in education, you have to believe in your students. You have to believe that the kids that you are teaching will take the information you're giving them and run with it and create a better world. So many of my days are just running on blind faith that something good will happen. I will make enough money to survive, and we will figure out climate change.
Yeah. Wow. That reminds me of the conversation I had with Camilla Tenyakun on this podcast, where she was talking about activism and how much respect she had for activists, whether it's social justice or environment, because they were giving so much of their life, sacrificing so much for a future that they don't even think they're going to live into. Like, because
Yeah.
you look at the future so much farther from now, especially with climate change. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of like doing so much for something you may not even uh, reap the benefits of, in a way.
Yeah. Oh,
Which,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a really interesting point that we're kind of doing it for people that we don't even know yet, but that's also so beautiful.
mm,
John Green writes in the Anthropocene Reviewed, which is a spectacular book that I actually taught to a bunch of middle schoolers this past semester, um, that students are going to study what we did in 100 years. And they're going to look back and be like, either why didn't they do more? What was wrong with them? Or I'm glad they did what they did because that set us up for where we are now.
mm,
And, I think I heard something like this when I was young that was like, your kids are going to look at you and say, what did you do to protect my future and to make sure that I could live a healthy life? And I want to be able to look them in the eye and say, everything I could,
mm,
everything I could. I did not sit by and let this happen. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to be successful. That doesn't mean that I'm going to, you know, single-handedly redesign the American government, but it means that with the power that I have, the imagination that I have, and the connections that I have, I did everything I could.
mm. Yeah, no, that's very powerful. And I'm curious if you had like a spark. Like, when did it start?
I was always really into the environment as a kid, but I always was really into theater as a kid. And so I was told that those were completely separate. And so I pursued theater, I pursued entertainment. But in college, I was just like looking for summer internships when I was a junior. And I actually went to college for marketing, which was just like a random choice that I made because I was scared to full send into theater. I was like,
Mm,
and again, I didn't, this was a moment where like, if I had been like, you have to believe in yourself, this is the secret, it would be completely different. But when I was 17, 18, I didn't believe that I could get into any college for theater. I just like did not have the confidence. I did not have the faith, even though I was doing theater every day and like it was my whole life. So I didn't audition anywhere. Like I
mm,
knew that if I got rejected from anywhere, it would kill me. And so I just didn't even give them the chance. Which looking back as an adult, I'm like, come on, Susie, you totally could have done that. But I didn't believe myself. So I went to
mm.
college for marketing. I'm not a marketer, but I just randomly picked this um topic because my cousin was an actor and he had gone to the school that I ended up going for marketing so that he could have like a backup plan if acting didn't work out. And so I was like, "Oh, cool. I'm going to do that too." And then I got to college and I was like, "I hate this so much. I want to die. This is the worst thing ever." I hated marketing. I hated it so much. Um, but it was all that I was doing. And so I was looking for summer internships and I applied for a marketing internship at the local aquarium, at the New England Aquarium, because I was like, I care about the environment. Maybe I could use marketing for good. And then when I went in for my interview, they were like, are there any other internships that you're interested in? And I had just looked on the website and saw that there was an education internship that was open to drama students and science students. And I was like, well, I'm kind of a drama student. So I was like, yes, actually, I actually don't want this marketing internship. And I like reapply for this education internship and I got it. And I think I got it on like pure enthusiasm alone because I didn't know anything about fish. I just was like very excited about this. And that changed everything because suddenly I was in a job where I was doing what I actually wanted to do. I had
Mm,
just spent the last 2 years of my life preparing for a career that I did not want. Like exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, did not want. And then suddenly I was performing again for kids to teach them about why protecting the environment is important. And I was like, oh, this is what I want the rest of my life to be,
that's it.
because I was having
Mm,
so much fun. I was making an impact. I was good at it. And it just, for the first time since I was like 16, I felt like aligned with what I should be doing. And so that summer, that internship absolutely changed my life, like totally just like hard pivoted my career to where it is today.
Wow, that's awesome. Did you finish your degree in marketing after that?
No, no, I swapped my major. I actually, so this happened actually before I did the internship, but my sophomore year, like halfway through my sophomore year, so halfway through college, like literally the halfway point, had this like mental breakdown. It was like, I don't want to do this. Please, someone. But the school that I was going to has like really rigid majors because it's kind of like a technical school, but for entertainment and for communications. So you had to audition for the drama program. You had to submit films for the film program. You had to submit writing like when you were 18. But they had this program where you could design your own major. And that was amazing. So I ditched marketing. Well, I just like tacked it on as a minor because I had gotten so many credits that now I like have a minor in marketing, which is great because I have to market the work that I do. But I made a very vague, very broad major that kind of acted like a skeleton key to every department in the school, which was awesome. So the degree that I have from my undergrad is called Entertainment Business Leadership. What does that mean? It meant that I could be like, hey, I want to take this acting class. And my advisor would be like, yeah, that sounds right. And then I'd be like, hey, I want to take this film class. And then my advisor would be like, that sounds right. And then I'd be like, hey, I want to take this social good activism fundraising class for indie films. And my advisor would be like, yeah, sounds good. So like for the second half of college, I was completely in charge of what I was able to learn and what I was able to kind of like puzzle piece together to build the career that I had. So I had already taken the step to like leap away from marketing, which was great. You know, so glad that I did that. But all of my experience was still in marketing. So I was still applying for marketing internships because I knew no one would hire me for anything else. And then thank God, the New England Aquarium took a chance on me and was like, we are going to hire this person on enthusiasm alone. And that just changed my life.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible because it takes also courage, right? To like build this like your own major like program. And it also takes some kind of lucidity or like awareness of what you want to do, which I find very interesting because I mean the experience of a lot of us, that was me included, is being in college, and even if you told me build your own major, I'd be like, I'm not sure like what I would do with it. So
well, there's the concept of audacity. Again, you have to have the audacity to do something insane.
Yeah.
And I also had just been living for 2 years being like, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. And I was miserable. I was like getting ulcers. My skin was bad. Like it was every part of my body and my soul was like, this is wrong. You need to do something about this. And so I did.
Awesome. And when did you create your first media, like the first I would even say children's media, like the first piece of media that was targeted children, that was yours? Like what was it, and when did it come up?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. The first piece of media I made was a kid's book. And again, like this is gonna sound a little woo-woo, but like the second I changed my like career path to like what I was actually gonna do, all of these opportunities opened up for me. Like it was great. And so the way that I wrote my first children's book is that I was like, I just moved to LA right after college, and a girl that I did theater with in college was working at a preschool, and we just met up for coffee. And I was like, I really want to work with kids. I haven't worked with kids in like a year, and I feel like I need to keep my skills sharp. So she was like, come volunteer at my preschool, teach science. And I was like, okay, great. And through teaching science, the head of the preschool, who is now one of my best friends in the whole world, was teaching a children's book writing class. And because I was volunteering at the preschool, she cut me a deal on the book writing class. And so it just like through me wanting to do this, the universe was like, here you go. Here's your opportunity. And I was thinking about writing a book called Lila the Great because I had a summer camp. I had a camper when I was a summer camp counselor named Lila, who I adored. I was like, "You are so awesome. If I could have a kid, I would want my kid to be you." But then at the preschool, I met this girl named Zaina, and she told me, she just like walked her little 4-year-old butt up to me and was like, "I'm the queen of nature." And I was like, "Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And I shall be writing a book about you." So then I teamed up with her mom, the woman that runs the preschool, and her. And I wrote this book called Zaina the Great and the Giant Plastic Monster, where a
Oh,
little girl sees this like anthropomorphized Great Pacific Garbage Patch in the ocean, and she uses science inquiry and community activism to figure out how to get rid of it. And so I wrote that in 2019, fundraised for it in 2020, published it in 2020, and that was my first real foray into children's content. And then I moved into other forms of children's content beyond books after that.
yeah. Do you still write books?
I do. I actually, so this summer I'm doing Shakespeare, but my rehearsals are at night, and so this in the daytimes I'm just taking this whole summer as a writer's retreat to write all of the things that are living inside my brain that I don't have time to write during the year. And so I'm working on this entire series of children's books right now that I'm so excited about.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're gonna work with an illustrator. Like, what's the process for you? Do you kind of tend to like work on it alone first, and then work maybe, or do you illustrate yourself? Like, what's the process for you on these books?
I'm not an artist. So no, I don't illustrate the books myself. But the first time for Xana the Great, I found my illustrator on Facebook. Which is crazy. I was in a group chat, or not a group, I like a Facebook group of children's book illustrators and children's book writers, and she just like would post her art sometimes in the page, and I was like, "Oh my god, this girl is amazing!" And so I don't know if I Facebook messaged. I think I Facebook messaged her and was like, "Hi, I really like your art. I'm writing this kid's book. Would you like ever consider illustrating?" And she was like, "Yeah." And then we worked together, and now we're like professional colleagues because she has pivoted into doing climate stuff too, which is amazing. But for this series that I'm working on, I had an illustrator in mind when I had the idea, who is like a dear friend of mine who all of her art sits on my walls in my bedroom. She's designed a tattoo of mine. We're going to Thailand together in the winter. So she is like my soulmate. And she just, the series is about a turtle. And I love turtles. They're my favorite animal. But this summer, she keeps rescuing turtles from the side of the road. And they're my favorite turtle. They're Eastern box turtles are my favorite turtle of all time. And so she's an artist, and she keeps rescuing the species of turtle that the book is about. And so I was like, "Hey, I'm writing this series about an Eastern box turtle. Do you want to illustrate it?" And she was like, "Yes, I do." So yeah. And then right now I'm in the writing process. So I'm not like in the producing process. But once I finish writing all of it, then I'll have to be like, put my fundraising hat on, put my producing hat on, put my publishing hat on. But today, the only hat I'm wearing is writer.
Nice. Is that your favorite part of the process?
Yes. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. Well, it's great because, and that's also like a practice that I've cultivated too, because sometimes I will start writing and then I'll put my producer hat on and be like, "How am I ever going to fund this?" Or like, "No one's ever going to pick this up. What streaming service would do?" And then I'm like, "Shut up." Again, shut up. Take that hat off, put it on the little rack, and put the writer's hat back on where the sky is the limit. And some of the best advice I ever got in college was from one of my best friends, where he said, creating and critiquing are two separate processes. So when I'm creating, I like shut the gates to the castle, and the monsters of my inner critic are clawing at the door, but I won't let them in just for the sake of creating. And then once I'm done with the first draft, or once I'm done with whatever, I reluctantly open the door and let them in. And
Yeah, I feel the same because I've been trying to write a few stuff and all. I feel that, yeah, but it's also kind of easy to go when you write alone
Mhm.
to get to a
Yeah.
direction where it's very hard to move away from, because you get too attached to your,
Yes.
the thing you created. So when you get those monsters in,
Yeah.
it's like, if I don't want them to go and destroy the whole thing that I built within the castle. So
Yep.
how do you deal with that? With like, maybe like feedback you receive that you realize there's big changes you have to make, or your own realization is like big changes, big direction that
Yeah.
you need to switch
Yeah,
to.
there's a phrase that I learned really early on in writing. I don't even remember when I learned it. Maybe it was high school, that you have to kill your darlings. And so that kind of like macabre imagery is really helpful for me. That I'm like, oh, my little babies that I've written into existence. I'm like, kill them. You got to kill them. Kill your darlings. I actually did this. I teach film production. I teach theater alongside of all the climate work that I do. And in my film production class last semester, I work with middle schoolers working on their own films, writing their own films, shooting them, blah, blah, blah. Last semester, I had them take 15 minutes to draw something, and all of them are very creative. So they all drew these beautiful images. And then I came in with the hat of the producer and said, budget cuts, rip it in half, rip it and rip it again, rip it again, rip it again, rip it again. At the point where the middle schoolers had like a tiny piece of each of their drawings, and then we put it in together as a collage. And then I was like, and this is the final production. This is the final piece of art that we will be showing the world. So I think being open to the transformational process of creating art, that you probably are going to end up nowhere near where you thought you would begin, but you have to trust the process and you have to kill your darlings in order to keep moving.
Very true. Awesome. I want to talk about the latest project that you've been releasing on YouTube, the series of episodes, Suzie Hicks and the Climate Chick and Sprout.
Yeah.
I want to know more about the genesis of this project, and if you can tell us a bit more about what it is, what's the goal, what's the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. This is another project that started years ago. I started writing this in 2020. And again, has had so many different iterations and has changed so much. The transformation of this project has been immense, and I've had to kill a lot of darlings to get to this point. But I made a college TV show called Suzie Hicks, the Science Chick, with a friend of mine named Kate. Hi, Kate. I love you if you're listening to this. Mm-hmm. And in 2020, she came back to me and she was like, all right, what's next? What are we making next? And I was really interested in children's media. I was working at PBS Kids at the time, like the local PBS station in LA. And I was so interested in the transformational power of children's media to like establish priorities in the world. And so I was like, let's make a kids show about climate change. And so in 2021, again, I did this with no money and just my friends. Once a week, 5 of my friends and I would meet on Zoom. I would get them all Grubhub gift cards because I couldn't pay them. And we wrote Suzie Hicks, the Climate Chick. And while we were working on it, it just came out that there needed to be a puppet. Like it just organically came out that we needed to have a puppet co-host. And she was nameless for so long. We were like nameless puppet co-host. And then organically through collaboration with my friends, it came out that she was a plant and that she was a sunflower, but she was too little to bloom yet. So she's just green. And so then we were like, what's her name going to be? Like plant names, plant. And then Sprout came out. And so again, working at PBS Kids is like a very foundational part of my pedagogy because I saw the Mr. Rogers documentary the week I graduated college and was like, oh, this is what I want to do with my life. And so understanding the strategy behind a lot of PBS Kids programming was really helpful for me in creating my own kids programming, because something that is really helpful is modeling positive behavior. So when kids see adults do things, they will repeat it for better or for worse. And I think, if there's any parents or teachers listening to this, they'll be like, and so for me, I was like, I want to show kids positive modeling of emotional regulation and positive modeling of climate positive behavior. And I don't mean like recycling or turning off the lights. I mean like community organizing. So the proof of concept that we made in 2021 was a 26-minute episode where we interviewed an urban farmer, two 16-year-olds who did climate strikes and did climate protests, and a musician who powered all of his concerts with renewable energy. So we were like, here are these 3 role models that you can be. But then we also had a moment where Sprout threw a tantrum because she started getting really overwhelmed with all the information. Because after the episode, she was like, great, I learned everything. And I was like, well, let's see about that. So she goes on this game show called The Wheel of Consequences, where there's like disembodied voice keeps telling her about all of these like heinous climate things that are happening. And eventually she just like gives up, runs out of the room and freaks out. And we have to, model emotional regulation. So that was in 2021. We shot that. We wrote it in 2020/2021, shot it in 2021 with like $200. And then in 2022 and 2023, I went to grad school for climate science. I edited it. My wonderful editor, Kathleen, edited it, and I worked with her. And then in 2022/2023, we started submitting it to festivals. So then in 2023, I did the festival circuit with it. And even though the production quality was pretty low and like, again, did it on a shoestring budget, having a proof of concept was more important than production quality. Like seeing the thing exist, even if like some of the things were pixelated and some of the audio quality sucked, seeing it and having it be real, like, again, was proof of the concept. And people were able to be like, oh, this concept has legs. And the first festival that I submitted to, we won the Visionary Film Award because the person that was running the festival was like, I see this idea and it's good. And like production quality be damned. This is valuable.
Yeah.
And through that, I started believing in myself again because I was like, I made it and then I pitched it a bunch of places and no one was biting. And so I was like, this is never going to go anywhere. I should quit. For like 2 months. I did go through like a long dark night of the soul with it after, the 7th or 8th rejection. I was like, and then, the belief and the audacity came back and I was like, okay, if this is not going to work, if pitching it to networks is not going to work, let's just put it in festivals and see what happens. And again, the universe was very happy with that. And so the first festival we submitted, we won the Visionary Film Award for. And so that was what got us kind of the recognition. We got on the local NPR station at the festival. People started talking about it. And then I took this pitch class that I didn't pay for because I ran the Zoom rooms. Like, like when you take a yoga class and you like wipe down the mats so you don't have to pay for it. That's what I did. And I got in touch with a producer and I pitched to her and she was like, let's do this. So since 2023, we've been working together. And in the end of 2023, I went viral for the first time, which gave me the following that I have. We raised $50,000 for the first 7 segments of the episode, and we shot it in 2024. It came out a couple of months ago, and now we're just writing more and more episodes and hoping that more people give us money.
That's very exciting. Yeah, it's a long process. Usually we don't see what's behind like that first episode.
So many nights of me being like, this is going nowhere. What am I doing? And then 5 different moments of like, nope, you have to be doing this. This is good. Keep going.
Yeah. I have a question, kind of a side question. You mentioned you suddenly went viral, and I feel like so many people right now, that's the aim. Like they try to get viral, which I don't think is a good kind of direction or goal. And I'm wondering if that's something for you that you know what happened that suddenly made a difference. Because I know it feels you're not necessarily like going for that specifically. You were like, it's a long-term project, but what happened there.
To me, even as like someone who would now be quote unquote considered an influencer, it's a crapshoot. Constantly. It is still constantly a crapshoot. And the story of me going viral for the first time is that I had just done a 30-day campaign where I posted a very high quality video every single day for 30 days on Instagram. None of them went viral. Zero. Zip. None. Every single day for 30 days, I was like getting up, putting on makeup, making a video, writing a script. And I was burnt out, but that was just to lead up to our fundraising campaign, where then I had to post twice a day to get people to give us money. And one of the ones that I did on the 30-day thing went viral on TikTok. So I got a little bit from that, but not really. And then I just made this like dumb little video for like, I didn't even think about it. I was like tired. I just ran an event and I got home and I just like made this little video because a kid had asked me about painting sidewalks white. And I was like, well, I mean, it's like kind of a solution, but it's like also not really a solution. And I don't even give like concrete solutions to it. I'm just like, I don't know, like painting sidewalks white is like kind of it, but it also like studies have shown that it doesn't really work. And suddenly, gone. Suddenly I had 15,000 followers. I was like, I worked so hard for 30 days on this entire campaign. And this is the one. This is the one. Okay, I'll take it. And right now I'm experiencing this video that I, again, made in like 2. Again, there are videos that I will spend weeks on, that I will work my butt off on and edit and script and perform and I'm like, this is the pinnacle of my career. I've done so well, and it'll get 200 likes and like 4,000 views. And this video that I made about protesting now has like 10,000 likes, 90,000 views, blah, blah, blah comments. And it's literally me like, I'm like crusty the day after a protest that was like pretty traumatizing. And I'm like, hey, here are some tips to like stay safe during a protest. And it's like, I'm in my pajamas. I'm not wearing any makeup. Like I just made this video because it came to me. And that again is the one that goes viral. So I'm sure there's people that know many more strategies, but for me, even as someone who does it almost every day, total crapshoot.
Yeah. No, that's really funny. Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily looking for a strategy. It's kind of like interested in if you understood what happened.
Well, they also changed the target is ever moving, because like Mark Zuckerberg will be like, I want to focus on this now, and then your entire strategy for the last year will be null and void, because now the thing that gets you engagement is like somewhere else. So,
but what I think is important is that like getting viral is kind of nothing if you don't have something behind.
Right. My number one piece of advice to like, because so many people are trying to do social media work. And so I see my friends starting to do social media work. And my number one piece of advice is always make content like you already have 1 million followers.
Yeah.
Because that means that you're going to make higher quality content. You're going to post consistently, and you're not going to eat yourself alive. There's this concept that I learned in grad school in my marine ecology class called limiting nutrients. And so it's in like a pond or a bay or a marine ecosystem. The limiting nutrient is the nutrient that has the least amount in the ecosystem, which limits the growth of the things that are in the ecosystem. So maybe that's like phosphorus, maybe that's the dissolved oxygen, or like whatever. And my best friend from grad school and I would always say this when we were applying for internships or we were doing something or trying to believe in ourselves, that you cannot be the limiting nutrient in your ecosystem. There will be limiting nutrients in your ecosystem. Money, rejection, all of these things. There will be outside limiting nutrients. It can't be you, because then you'll never know how much you could grow if you are the limiting nutrient yourself. And so, especially with social media, there are days, and there have been days, where I'm like, again, what am I doing? Like, what is the point of this? No one cares. I'm screaming into the void, especially because I started my Instagram in 2019 and I went viral in 2023. So there were 4 years of me having 2,000 followers. Nobody, like, again, but the same people that I've been with in my account since 2019 are the people that are engaging with my content. Like I look at my stories and I look at the people that are watching it, and it's people that I know. It's the people that I have like built genuine connection with. So while it's amazing that now I'm starting to get these like AI brand deals because I have a K next to my followers, the people that I'm really digging into, like my community and my target audience, are people that I know. And so yeah, I just operate not for the goal of getting followers, but for the goal of deepening my connection with the people that I'm already connected to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And talking about this target audience, because you're creating media for children, at least
Mhm.
with this series, the children are going to be consuming your content. But then the parents or the educators are the ones that are often going to put this content in front of their children, or at least kind of validate,
Yeah.
the fact that children is going to look at it. How do you target the parents and educators? How do you communicate with them? Like, how do you make sure that they are aware of, the content you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends on the platform. So on YouTube, we are solely just for kids. If you go on our YouTube and you look at all of our videos, if you watch the episode and watch any of the ancillary content that we make, our YouTube is like, if you're 4 to 7, you're in the right place. But also the content is meant to kind of tap into the inner child of an adult too, and be like, this is scary. Are you okay? You can cry. You can talk about this. You can kind of regulate your own emotions too. So it's been a really intergenerational experience of like adults are like, wait, I think I needed to hear this too. So again, for YouTube, that's like where the product lives. So kids can go and access it, and parents can go and access it, and teachers can go and access it. But then for the rest of my online communication, it's to adults because you have to be 13 to have an Instagram account. And I love LinkedIn too. And so LinkedIn is a lot of being like, here is the practical world behind what we're making. You should use this. So it's a lot more like, here's a professional network. Here's what we're doing. Like, if you're interested in this curriculum, you should contact me, blah, blah, blah. But then Instagram, I'm just talking to anyone who loves a child. And turns out that's a lot of people because kids have an entire ecosystem around them. They have their parents, they have teachers, they have aunts and uncles, they have godparents, they have a cousin who's 16 years older than them. Like they have a family friend. I'm not targeting specifically parents and educators. We are on the website because we have like parent curriculum and educator curriculum. But on my social media and like me as a person, I'm targeting adults, inner children, and anyone who loves a kid. And I speak a lot. I do a lot of speaking engagements because I have ADHD and I'm a performer. And so I'm terrible at emails. I'm terrible at scheduling. I'm terrible at anything that requires me to like sit at a computer. But God, get me on a stage and I'm having the best time of my life, which is funny because everyone has different strengths. Like there are people that are very disciplined and have very good time management skills, which I do not. And getting on a stage is like their worst nightmare in the world. And so I'm trying to capitalize on my strengths. So I love to go to a conference. I love to chat. I love to talk. And so I love to go and talk about the pedagogy behind the work that I do. And I was just at a conference in Idaho 2 weeks ago. And one of the people staying at the speaker house with me, we just like became friends. And she was younger than me. And so she doesn't have any kids. She's not a parent. But then a week ago, she sent me a picture of her showing my show to her nephew. And she was like, my nephew is obsessed with your show. And so if I was just targeting parents and just targeting educators, I feel like I would be missing so much of the ecosystem. And so I kind of am just targeting anyone who cares.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to target climate deniers. I'm not trying to like argue with anyone. I'm trying to tap my target audience is like people who are stressed out about this, but don't know what to do. And then I say, come on in, welcome. Let's work together. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You're not alone. Welcome to this big, beautiful party. Get on the bus.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, so you mentioned that you have a curriculum that goes along with your series. Was
Mhm.
that part of the project from the beginning, or what does it look like, and why did you want to add that element to an already kind of massive project, because creating all this series of videos is already pretty massive. So adding a curriculum to it is, it's an added part to it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
tell me more like about the idea behind it.
Absolutely. So it's kind of a two-pronged idea. So my producer is the president of the Children's Media Association, and she is amazing at creating like multifaceted IPs. So she's like, we're not just making a TV show. We are making an entire movement for children on how to get engaged in climate action. So she's much more ambitious than I am, which I really appreciate, because I, as a writer and a performer, I'm like, I just want to make art. And she's like, we're going to change the world. And I'm like, okay, awesome. Thank you. And funnily enough, her name is also Suzie, which is complicated because we spell it the same way too. So people get very confused. But Suzie's leadership, she's the one that is really like taking this project and blowing it wide open. And so right now we're like, over the summer, we're actually working on this whole like classroom program where all of these different classrooms in the world are going to watch the show, do the curriculum, and then we're going to send them a bunch of stuff to make them feel like they're a part of a community. And that, a lot of that comes from Suzie. And then the other part is that I, again, have worked in children's public media for 7 years. And I've seen that every PBS Kids show has a package of curriculum that goes along with it, has games, has coloring sheets, has all these things to take it off of the TV screen and into real life. And so the PBS station I work at, PBS SoCal, always says that we're not just a TV station, we're an educational nonprofit. So it's just deepening that learning, deepening the community building, and taking the content that we're trying to teach into the real world so kids can model it there.
Yeah. And the younger generation, it feels that they're more engaged and wanting to change things than the older generation. Is that something that you're seeing, or would you say that there's kind of an equal evolvement among generations?
Well, I mean, this is the generation that's seeing climate change. They're active, like, this is no longer a future threat. This is a current threat that's happening right now. Like, kids are dying. 20 kids just died in a flood last week. And so kids, even if they're not learning about it in school, they know that something's wrong. But I think there's this interesting concept where adults are like, all right, good luck, kids. Here you go. You're going to be the leaders forever. But I also think that negates the people that have tried really hard and that are working really well. Like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the adult role models in my life, like my dad or like Steve Irwin or like, all of these people that have come before me that have created the processes of activism that now I use. And so I think, yes, younger generations are more engaged because the stakes are higher, because it's like, no longer is it a grandkid's problem. This is like a me problem, like, I'm going to die in a fire and I have microplastics in my body. So I think it's becoming a lot more urgent and a lot more personal. But there are older people, especially people that are retired, that are like, well, I got nothing to lose. Let's get arrested today, which I think is badass. So I think that there is an element of intergenerational collaboration and like older generations that are really engaged with this problem. But simply because the disaster is here, it's affecting younger generations more because they're the ones that have to grow up with it and live with it.
Yeah, not totally. And talking about that kind of feeling, feeling that climate change, you mentioned, like, young generation, we might feel it more because we're going to live through it, and so it feels more real. Maybe that it might to other generation. How do you balance the, like, you mentioned, I saw in can't remember if it was an article or a podcast that you did, that you've described like swinging between, oh my god, we're
I
doomed,
was just gonna say that.
and a better world is possible, and like swinging between these two states.
Yeah.
Like, how do you pull yourself back from the we're doomed to the better world is possible?
Sometimes I just need to feel it. Like, sometimes one of my major one of my major role models in the world is Hayao Miyazaki, the Japanese filmmaker. And that guy is so nihilistic, which is so great because his movies are so hopeful and they're so rooted in community and they're so rooted in like a better world as possible. But he, as a person, that dude's like chain smoking and going, oh my God, oh my God. And so I also, next to the like, you have to believe in yourself, that's the secret, I have a picture of Miyazaki looking stressed out on my desk. Because we have to feel that. We have to be like, oh my God, this is terrible. Because if we are just like, it's fine, like that's unrealistic. And that's just like delusion at this point. And so I let myself feel the word doomed, and I'm feeling it a lot these days. And I don't sit in it. I feel it, and then I go, okay, let's look at examples of historical resilience. Let's look at examples of resistance movements that have won. Let's look at the people who, even though these horrible, horrible things are happening and climate change is making everything worse, let's find the helpers, which is literally something that Fred Rogers said, is that when he was scared as a kid and he would see scary things in his nose, in the movies, his mom would always say, look for the helpers. And so you got to feel it, you got to look for the helpers, and then you got to become one. Because there's another quote that's like, I always wondered, I think it's Lily Tomlin that said, I always wondered why somebody didn't do something about that. And then I realized that I was somebody. And so for me, like all of the books on my desk are like Freedom's Children, young civil rights activists tell their own stories. Stand Up, young activists who rock the world. Like it's stories of people that against insurmountable odds did something. And so, absolutely, I'm doom scrolling. Like I would be lying if I said I wasn't a doom scroller. But then I also am like, put it down and pick up this book of someone who is living in horrible conditions and someone who was dealing with environmental degradation, fascism, all of this. And what did they do about it? And so then how can I take this and inspire myself in my own world to do something about it?
Yeah, that's very inspiring. What would you recommend people that are in that space of wisdom but struggle to get out? Would you say go read one of these books, or go find like a local movement community? Like what would be that first step that you would recommend?
Yeah, the first step is always find your local community. I have on my Instagram, I made this in 2020. It's been pinned since 2020. I have this graphic that's 7 tips for brand new climate activists. And the first one is make it visible. And so the recommendations are follow the accounts, sign up for the newsletters, identify the candidates, and support the scientists. So, for example, when the fires happened in LA, that's where I live. When they happened in January, immediately it was what mutual aid funds are happening, who's organizing donations, who's doing like a food train, who's doing this, where can I put this? And immediately it was like, follow. Let me follow K-Town for All. Let me follow like the Altadena Seed Library. Let me follow this person. So then months later, it shows up on my feed and I go, oh my God, yeah, I am free on Saturday. I can go to this water drop. They just posted a graphic about a mutual aid meetup and I'm free. Let's go. Let's meet people. Because for me, when I just moved to LA, I was so lonely. I was really lonely. I just like all my friends were on the East Coast and I just moved, leapt into the unknown in the West Coast. And the way that I started feeling less alone socially and also less terrified about climate was joining the Sunrise Movement chapter in my area and the Extinction Rebellion chapter in my area, and then getting trained as a climate reality leader. All 3 of these places gave me community and connections. And so now I would die for the Sunrise Movement. That's pretty dramatic. And I'm sure like years from now, I'll be like, why did you say that? But like the Sunrise Movement, I think is so vital because it's about democracy. It's about economic like justice for all. And I started working with them in 2020 during the pandemic, during the George Floyd uprisings. And then after I went to grad school, I came back and during the fires, they were like, yo, we're occupying a gas facility for 3 days. Do you want to come camp? And I was like, absolutely, I do. And so I went and I camped with them for 3 days outside of an oil facility. And it was the most fun I've ever had. And now that I'm here in the Northern Bay Area, I messaged the local Sunrise group on Instagram and I was like, yo, I'm here for the summer. Let's mobilize. And they were like, hell yeah, dude, that's awesome. Let's meet up. Let's get on a call. And so, yeah, absolutely. Number one is like identify the local community that is happening. And if you're in a small town, you can start by like finding the people in the bigger city and then seeing how that trickles back out into whatever town you are. So like, I'm in a small town, but I know that the Sunrise San Francisco chapter is like in San Francisco. So I can go into San Francisco and then through that, you get to know more people that are more local. And I just learned that there's like a West Marin Climate Action Club. I'm going to go try to get in touch with them. And apparently there's like a school that's like totally solar powered in the town next to me. And I'm going to go try to meet those people. So it's very people centered. It's very relationship centered. Oh, and I blocked my Instagram during the day. And now that it's 9, I can't access it anymore. But yeah, it was like, make it visible. You have to be notified about it every day. And not just the heinous stuff happening in the news. You need to be notified about like when the community events are, where you can donate your used laptop, like all of that things. Like once you know what's happening in your community, you can get more involved and that makes you safer and that makes the community safer. I think, again, like in this world that we live in right now, this like very individualized, very capitalistic society, connection is very radical and vulnerability is very radical. So like beyond, toppling an oil rig and, overthrowing the regime, the way that you can start getting engaged is by just connecting with other people.
Yeah, I love that. That's so interesting because what you just mentioned makes me think of a French philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, who defined like a movement called existentialism. But basically one thing that struck with me is one of the few things I remember from my philosophy classes in high school is the concept of when you do an action, you engage the entire humanity behind you. Because if you do it, that means that every human is potentially able to do it or capable of doing it. And so you kind of engage the responsibility of the whole of humanity behind your actions. It's kind of similar to what you were saying. I find that very interesting.
When you set a precedent, it becomes replicable. And that's like, that is something that really gives me hope about climate action is that like once someone does it somewhere, that means you can do it here. Once, the group of kids that sued the Montana government won, we know that it's possible to sue your government and win. And so other people can get inspired by that and replicate it around the entire world. So yeah, I love that. That's totally the vibe.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Suzie. It's already an hour. It goes so fast. I could talk for like another hour. But I have one other question that I ask everybody at the end of the podcast. If you could design a school around one thing, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a great question. It'd be community. It would be absolute interdependence, intersectional community responsibility, I guess, and like how to do conflict negotiation, how to live in a community, knowing that like conflict is completely like necessary and inevitable, but that it's also possible to work through. And then, obviously in connection with the land, learning about justice, learning about climate, blah, 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 climate resilience. But like, I think beyond any specific topic, it's like togetherness is the most important thing to me.
Wonderful. Great. Where should people go to find more about your work? I know you had a lot of different channels, but if you want people to go and look for more information about what you do, where would you direct them?
You can watch the show on YouTube. We are Suzie and Sprout. If you want to see the actual show, the actual episodes and all of our videos. You can follow me on Instagram at Suzie Hicks Climate Chick. You can follow me on TikTok at The Climate Chick. You can find me on LinkedIn at Suzie Hicks, or you can go to our website, SuzieHicksTheClimateChick.com.
Awesome. And I put all the links in the description.
Amazing.
All right. Thank you so much, Suzie.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.